Let's come to the last domain of security plus governance, risk and compliance. Let's see what all topics are covered in this particular domain. The weightage for governance, risk and compliance is 14%. Now the discussion of this domain starts with controls. So what are controls? Controls are mechanisms that we implement in order to ensure cyber security of our organization. There are different types of controls. We have managerial controls, we have operational controls, technical controls. This is one categorization. Another categorization of controls is based on the type of the controls. Preventive, detective, corrective, deterrent, compensating, physical. So what are the different types of controls? What are the examples of different types of controls, where it is being implemented? We will go through all those aspects. Then we move to cyber security related laws, regulations and frameworks. See, we talked about implementing cyber security controls. So if we want to implement cyber security controls in our organization, what do I refer? Where do I get the list of controls from, cyber security controls from? So there are a lot of best practices, there are a lot of standards or frameworks that are available from which we can pick our relevant cyber security controls. ISO 27001, 27002, 31000. Then we have SSAE based SOC controls to check for cloud, for implementing security controls in the cloud environment. You can refer to the Cloud Security Alliance documentations, and you can also refer to NIST Risk Management Framework, NIST Cyber Security Framework. So for any cyber security related documentations, NIST is always a very good reference. So NIST is a government organization based out of US, and they are responsible for creating all the security related standards and documentations for US federal government departments. So these are some of the key references that we can use to understand and implement cybersecurity controls. Then we are going to laws, regulations, etc. See, implementation of cybersecurity in organizations, it starts with the identification of cybersecurity objectives. So cybersecurity objective means understanding what we intend to achieve by the implementation of cybersecurity in our organization. So how do you understand your objectives? To understand the objectives, you have to first understand your cybersecurity related laws and regulations. So what are the relevant cybersecurity laws and regulations that we have to know? We will discuss comprehensively in this particular section. Then we go to benchmarks. So we said every information system, every application we have to develop security baselines for them. And based on the security baselines, we have to configure those devices. So what is the reference for security baselines? Again, Center for Internet Security, NIST, these are good references. Then we move to other security policies that we have to develop in our organization. So the first control, we talked about implementing cyber security control. The first control that we implement in any cyber security environment is the security policies, cyber security policies. There are different types of cyber security policies. We have the high level organizational policies. Then we have organizational policies related to asset management, change management. Then we have policies related to data classification. So data classification means not all the data in our organization have the same level of importance. Some data does not have importance, some have some importance, some have really good importance, and some data has the highest of importance. So depending on the importance, so when we say depending on the importance, we actually mean in data classification what we are considering is if the data is lost, or if the data goes into the hands of an unauthorized person, what is the impact of the organization? Based on that impact, we have to classify our information. So for that also we have to have policies in place. Third-party risk management. We have to have policies in place to ensure that third parties who are having access to our information, they also follow our security policies. So what are the different components of third-party risk management? What all we have to know, what all we have to cover, we will discuss each of these things. Then we move to personal security. Personal security means human resource based security, or HR security. In the initial overview of CompTIA Security Plus, we discussed about attacks. We discussed about many types of attacks. And if you look at the cyber security attacks, the most common cyber security attacks, or the most common cyber security breaches, happen due to social engineering attacks. In social engineering attacks, attackers are able to fool or trick our people. So that is why people-related security concepts or HR-related security concepts are very important. So we will understand HR security. We will understand the different components of HR security, what we have to know. We will go through all those concepts. And an important aspect of HR security is security training and awareness. So what are the components of security training and awareness? How it is done? These things we will especially go through as a part of this particular section. Then we come to risk management. In risk management concepts, we will discuss two things. One is risk assessment, and we will also discuss business impact analysis. Now, we said every cyber security implementation activity starts with identifying security objectives, cyber security objectives. After identifying the cyber security objectives, the next thing is we have to achieve those cyber security objectives. To achieve the cyber security objectives, we have to implement controls. There are a lot of controls. So which is the control that is more important to us? Which is less important? That first we have to identify. So for that, we will do risk assessment. As a part of risk assessment, we will identify all of our organizational risks, cyber security risks. After identifying the risk, we will rate them. Some risk is low, some risk is medium, some risk is high, some risk is critical. So we identify and rate the risks so that we can focus on the critical and high level risk first, then come to medium risk. So it helps us to focus our resources accordingly. Once we identify and rate the risk, then we identify the controls that is required to address our risk. So risk assessment is an important concept. We will discuss all the types of, all the aspects related to risk assessment. What is quantitative risk assessment? What is qualitative risk assessment? How do we calculate risk? Once we identify the risk, we have to treat risk. What are the different mechanisms for treating risks? Then how do we monitor the risk? How do we do risk management? All these things we will discuss as a part of discussing risk assessment. Then we go to business impact analysis. Now, risk assessment is associated with implementing cyber security controls. Remember earlier we discussed about business continuity and disaster recovery. We said if an organization is faced with a disaster, man-made disaster or natural disaster, we might not be able to operate for a day or longer. In such cases, we have to move to a different location and we have to start operations from there. So to achieve business continuity or disaster recovery, for that also we have to implement mechanisms or we have to implement controls. So what are the controls that we have to implement as a part of business continuity? To understand that, we do business impact analysis. So risk assessment is done to understand the cyber security controls, and business impact analysis is to understand or identify the business continuity controls. So under business continuity, business impact analysis, what all activities do we do? What all parameters we identify? Everything we will discuss one by one. Then we move to the last topic in this particular domain. In this, we will discuss data privacy. See, we have information. We have information and we want to protect the confidentiality, integrity and availability of information. Confidentiality means access to the information only by authorized people. A part of the confidentiality concept is data privacy. In data privacy, we are talking about protecting personally identifiable information, or PII. PII is the data that is used to uniquely identify a person, like his name, his address, his date of birth, his family information, his medical information, his financial information, his government ID card details. These are all examples of personally identifiable information. So in data privacy, we are talking about how to protect the personally identifiable information of individuals. So it might not be a big thing in our country, but as far as geographies like EU and US are concerned, data privacy, personal information and its protection is very important. So anyways, we have to know the concepts related to data privacy. So what is data privacy? What are the different data classification types we have to know? What are the different types of privacy information? What are the technologies that we can use to protect privacy information? What are the different roles and responsibilities related to data privacy in organizations? All these things we will discuss in this particular section. So in the last domain, we are essentially talking about cybersecurity governance. And as a part of cybersecurity governance, we identify the cybersecurity objectives, we do risk assessment, we do business impact analysis to identify the controls. Then we implement the controls that we identified. And as a part of implementation of the controls, we also identify PII, that is data related to privacy controls. And then to protect privacy data, we also discuss what are the controls that can be implemented to protect any privacy data.